Welcome, foolish mortals. If you are easily offended, the CET game show session is next door. Welcome to Spells for Bewitching Presentations. Interior designers are no longer just creators of beautiful spaces. We're modern-day spellcasters taking on roles in sales, marketing, and graphic design. In this enchanting session, you'll uncover the magic of graphic design principles like typography, balance, and negative space, while learning CET spells and what I call witchy tips to conjure personalized, client-ready presentations. Leave with a cauldron full of confidence and the tools to charm any audience with your next bewitching presentation. My name is Jen Baker, and my current coven is Atmosphere Commercial Interiors, where I've been a senior designer for over 2 years and 4 years at a previous coven, so I've been a CET witch for about 6.66 years. I just visited Salem, learned calligraphy, and love anything spooky. I have 3 monsters, Tor, Louie, and Thor, and a fiance. In my past life, I studied interior design at James Madison University, while also electing to enroll in a couple of graphic design classes and learn the Adobe Creative Suite. After graduating, I practiced what I had learned at school through wakeboard and surf flyers and still implement some of those graphic design principles as tools in my day-to-day as a dealer designer that I will share with you. Let's talk a little bit about graphic design and why it's important for interior design and presentations. The role of interior designers has evolved in recent years. It's no longer just about creating beautiful spaces. Interior designers are now expected to wear multiple hats and create bewitching presentations. Bear with me during this next torturous bit as we dive into typography, a basic component of a bewitching presentation. Typography is one of the most important design elements. It is used to differentiate sections of information such as headlines, subheads, body text, and quotes. With typography, it is possible to highlight messages and create a dynamic graphic design. What a profound statement from Configura. Fonts can be categorized as either serifs or sans serifs. Serifs are the little flourishes known as wings and feet on each letter, like Times New Roman. Serifs are great for copy. Sans serifs don't have those little flourishes and are great for headlines and subheadlines. For example, H&I's logo has serifs, whereas Miller Knoll is a sans serif font. Kerning relates to the spacing between letters. Steelcase's logo has tight kerning, which I call a yearning for kerning, where each letter is touching the next, whereas Hayworth's logo has loose kerning between letters. Why are fonts important? They help with readability, aging eyes, and those with dyslexia. Some fonts have labels at the end of their name. These labels help guide you on how to use it. For example, any font with the book label at the end is great if you have a lot of copy, like the Sanderson Sisters spellbook. And a black label could work well for a title slide. For this slide, I called out the fonts used. So we have Helvetica for the title, Helvetica italicized for the subtitle, Georgia for the bullet point, and Aptos Narrow for the table. I'm going to quickly fly past this table, but remember that the labels correlate to how you should use the font and reference this table as needed. Font sizes are measured by points. There are 72 points in 1 inch. As we know, CET goes by inches instead of points. It's for plotting purposes. But what about for your smaller size presentations? To convert from inches to points, multiply your figure by 72 or divide by 0.013888. So if you're inputting 0.17 inches into CET, multiply that by 72 and it will give you a rough point size of 12. Remember, CET rounds to the nearest hundredth when inputting your measurement, so a true point size of 12 might be difficult to achieve. For this slide, I called out the font size used. So we have 44 point for the headline and subheadline, 16 point for the bullet points, and 11 point for the table. Note font sizes are the same for different typefaces. So Helvetica size 12 might look different than Times New Roman size 12. There are over 300 fonts available in CET, so pick your poison. Consider these spells when selecting your presentation fonts. Does your marketing team have a preferred font and size for copy versus presentations? For example, our dealership uses Arial size 12 for copy and Georgia for presentations. If not, here are some good fonts to use because they're easy to read. Sans serif fonts like Arial, Helvetica, and Verdana are often preferred for digital screens due to their clean lines and lack of extra embellishments. Serif fonts such as Georgia and Times New Roman are also popular choices, especially for printed materials. Cast a curse on these fonts because they're hard to read and they're known in the industry to be unprofessional. Comic Sans, Papyrus, Impact, GG, or any overly decorative font. Have you ever wondered what makes graphic design stand out? It's not magic, but a set of principles that guide every visual choice. Here are the 8 basic principles of graphic design. For presentation purposes, we are going to focus on balance, hierarchy, alignment, and white space. There are 4 main types of balance. Symmetrical is mirrored or distributed evenly on either side of a central axis. Asymmetrical distributes visual weight unevenly while maintaining equilibrium. Mosaic or crystallographic is organized chaos. Radial is when elements radiate outward from a central point. Hierarchy refers to visually heavier objects below and visually lighter objects above. So for my fellow witches, just remember, as above, so below. White space offers a nice visual break for the eyes. Include negative space in your presentations. A witchy tip is to always crop your renderings and images as needed. So avoid large spans of nothing like gray walls or the CET gray carpet or too much white space because we want to make sure that your page is balanced. Alignment is the strategic placement of design elements to create a sense of order, unity, and structure. It involves arranging text and objects along common edges, guiding the viewer's eye, and establishing visual connections. So let's talk about why this is important. Because every project is different, every plan is different. Templates are a great jumping off point, but sometimes adjustments to the paper views are needed to maintain these graphic design principles, which we will discuss further in the section dedicated to CET. Save.cmppr files are a great base point, but since every project's different, it will look so much more thoughtful if you customize the presentation to your client's plan, vision, and quirks. One of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite architects: sometimes less is more. Mies van der Rohe. Before astral projecting into CET's paper view, here are some spells to consider. Think about how your clients are viewing the presentation. Are they printing it out or are you presenting it? Are you sending it off via email or are they coming to your showroom? Are you scanning it into a copier in black and white and then faxing it to the client? If it's the latter, that's a final nail in the coffin for your presentation. Think about what kind of deck you want to create. If the project has a large floor plan, or if you know nothing about your client, consider alternative programs for your presentation. PowerPoints with beautiful imagery can also mitigate tight turnarounds. Maybe a lookbook or CET block plan is the way to go for your first pass. But if it makes sense to produce a CET presentation, utilize reusable files and the graphic design principles we talked about earlier to create a bewitching presentation for your clients. Witchy tip, make it personal. Something small but meaningful goes a long way. Consider applying the client's branding or your own into the presentation. Use a color picker to determine the RGB value of their logo if it's not easily accessible online, and use that color in your presentation. You can easily add these to CET's custom colors. You can also use their logo as the picture frame or monitor images. It's a quick and efficient way to cast a spell on your client. If their logo is loud, you can pull images off their website. You can now just double click on the monitor to change the image in lieu of going through the COM dialog, which I will demonstrate. Here we have a private office with a couple different picture frames. This is the horizontal photo frame that is available under the Office Accessories tab. To change the photo, you can just double click and insert your image. And same concept applies for the widescreen monitors within CET. Double click, insert your image. Now, if you have imported photo frames from SketchUp, you would just paint those on using materials. So a bewitching presentation has its downsides. Including everything you want within CET can make the file large quickly. Here are some witchy tips to help optimize CET performance. So first, turn off the extensions you won't need. Go to Help, Extension Details, and then scroll down to any manufacturers you know you won't need for this drawing, because you can always turn them back on. Then hit Return to CET. Next, try to only have one CET drawing open at a time. If you need to have two open, use the Shared Window for All Drawings feature under the Drawings tab, because I personally found that helpful to create less open windows, and then you can just toggle between the drawings. Next, clean up your CAD file. So there's no CAD in this example drawing, but if you were to import a CAD, make sure you clean it up first. If you attended Michael Beal's session, he showed some great tips to help optimize CET performance. You can also clean up your CET file by going to Tools, Cleanup Drawing, which is the beta version, and remove excess items. If any of them are larger than like 1 megabyte, I would ask yourself, do you really need this in the drawing? Can you compress the size anymore? So just select what you want to remove, hit the remove button, and that will help clean up your drawing. If you are downloading stock photos online, many manufacturers now offer a choice. So you can do low resolution JPEG files, and those are fine for CET. So save your images into a folder and then use websites like iloveimg.com to compress your images. So you select the images you want. I'll select these 3, for example. Hit the Compress Images button, and now our images are 50% smaller without compromising quality, and then it will save it as a zip file that you can re-download. And if you have the capability to render overnight in Photolab, use the Render Multiple feature and select the renderings you would like to render and render those overnight. Or you can use plugin extensions like aura. So you have your drawing all set up. Now let's create some magic. There are 9 drop-down sections in Paper Tools that are useful to creating a bewitching presentation. The first is setup and covers a little bit of housekeeping. So if you go to Paper Manager and click on Page Setup Dialog, it'll pop up the page and printer setup. You'll be able to manage your pages and set your DPI. So the default is 150 DPI or dots per inch. This I think is fine for CET purposes, but you can increase or decrease as needed. So just make sure you have at least 150 DPI set. DPI is a key factor in determining the sharpness, clarity, and overall quality of both printed materials and digital displays. It corresponds as a print term. So you'll see this in any print dialog box, including this one up here. You can also click here and set it. Nothing can ruin a presentation like pixelated imagery or plan, so make sure your settings are at least 150 DPI. Next is drawing, where you can add your 2D view clips and renderings from PhotoLab. If you typically add a frame to your 2D views, consider a shape to complement your furniture style. A current design trend is softer edges, and CET supports this aesthetic with different shape frames, including rounded rectangle. You can also get creative with the shapes using the 2D shape tools. To do this, ensure that you have the custom shape option selected, and then you can play around with the shape. Next is 2D view clip add-ons, and this is where some real magic happens. I'll cover the main tools I use for presentations and fly quickly past the others. First is the rotate always readable text to be readable. Use this if you're having issues with the readability of your text. Next is the custom scale for text in view clip. And I found this handy if you need to enlarge or shrink text on the go, especially if you have a larger page, like this is a 24 by 36, and you want the font to be scaled appropriately. But I don't use these first 2 add-ons much. The third one is show only black and white colors, and I highly recommend using this because it makes your plans look so much cleaner. Next is show column balloons, and this is only needed if you set this up in drawing space under Tools Construction. Next is show part tag colors, and this is my favorite. So we'll select this 2D view clip add-on, apply it to our plan, click. As you can see, nothing happened. So I need to do 2 things to show the colors. First, I want to click on the plan and click on the little part tag color icon, and this green dialog box pops up. I want to show tag 1. My general markings are all gray. Tag 1, I did some fun colors. As you can see, I have tag 1 applied. We don't have colors, and it's because we have our black and white filter. So we can either remove the black and white filter, or if you click on the black and white filter icon and then filter the tag 1 items off, and this is a little counterintuitive, but if you select visibility off, it'll show your colors. Now I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I think this is important. If you have the show part tag color add-on enabled, you need to include a tags legend, which is under tools, which we'll get to in a little bit. But what you'll do is the same process. You'll want to make sure you have tag 1 showing because that's what's shown on your plan. And we don't really need the title. It says tag 1. We'll just remove that. We have our color, our tag, and our description. If you need color inspiration, pick colors from the client's logo and input the RGB values into custom colors in tags. So here's our part tag dialog box. Down here we have tag 1. We can do a custom color. If you want to input the RGB values, you can do that here, and it will replace whatever is highlighted, or you can select a fresh, clean slate, a white box, and then enter your RGB values. We'll do something like that. So now we have some custom colors that we can choose from for our tagging. And if you hit OK, it'll change those colors. You can also add description, so quantity counts or any other pertinent information, anything you want to call out, pop into the description because you can have it show up on the plan. And that's very helpful if you're not presenting your proposal in person. This will kind of give a guide for the client. Next, we have show scale, which I think is great if you're creating a proposal within CET. A 1/4 inch scale is ideal for print. And lastly, we have add frame. So whatever shape you created earlier, it'll just add a frame box around it. You can select the frame, go to custom, and even make it dotted lines or dashed lines or whatever fits your aesthetic. So this is a really cool feature, but don't waste your time here. Let's circle back to tools. So you can use this toolkit to show off all the hard work you've already done setting up your drawing. So here I have a saved template file. I'm going to add a help grid from corner to corner, leaving a little bit of bleed around the edges. You can edit your horizontal and vertical bars. I'll max these out at 10. You can do even more with the dividers. If the lines are distracting, you can even do a dot style. Make sure you have the simple snapping box enabled. This is kind of like PowerPoint or InDesign, where when you're dragging things over, they'll want to snap to the grid, which is very helpful for aligning your items. So say we got everything kind of set. Notice my 3D view clip, finish box, and article view box aren't aligned. I created some hotkeys, some keyboard shortcuts to align these. So I will just select all 3 of these. And for align down, I did Alt plus D, align down, Alt D. So I'll hit that on my keyboard and it snapped everything to the bottom. So everything's nice and clean. I have Alt L for left, Alt R for right, and Alt U for up. I use these every day, so I highly encourage you to do the same. You can also use them in drawing space. So now that everything's aligned how I want, I can go ahead and select the grid around the perimeter and delete it. We already talked about tags legends. Let's skip over to article view. Make sure you clean up your article view before inserting into your paper view to ensure the text is readable. So if you just have the main article view with all your product in here and export it, this is way too small for anyone to read, so pretty much useless. So clean it up first. I imported a very basic calculation view that just has quantity, part number, description, and IND tag. And now you can read it a little bit better. Maybe don't show the summary, and then multiple line text will fit it all into the box. But once again, it's a little bit difficult to read. That font's way too small. So you can play around with this. And this is only if you guys use article views. I know not everyone uses them. But if you are going to use them, make sure you clean them up first. Okay, next we're going to talk about images and files. So you might notice when you're downloading images, there's PNG or JPEG. And what is better for CET? So if you're using CET, use JPEG because it uses what's called lossy compression, which discards some data to create a smaller file. This means that there's no transparency support offered, which doesn't really apply to CET. PNG uses lossless compression, so no image data is lost during compression, but the file size is larger. And so therefore transparency support is offered, and that's great for programs like PowerPoint that allow you to layer the images. So if you're downloading a PNG, you might notice there's like a gray and white grid behind it. That means it's transparent behind here, whereas JPEG, it's just white. And JPEG and JPG and JPEG are the same thing, in case you were wondering. Now for COMs, the best practice is to download images and use materials to paint them. Always reduce size or download resolution, low resolution, and utilize the new material portal if it's a COM that's available in there. For your DPI material lab, sometimes if you're importing a swatch and you edit the scale of it, it'll also edit the DPI. Make sure you have 13 or lower, because if you have it too high, it'll make the material look nice. Reducing the DPI will make the texture look nice from a distance, but you'll notice a loss in detail when zooming in, but that's the whole point because many renderings are generated from a zoomed out perspective. So just remember lucky 13. So material lab, new material, and this is for non-PBR materials. So here we have the Configura logo. Say we want to increase the size to 10 feet by 10, it reduced the DPI. So just keep that in mind when you're editing the resolution and the width and height. We don't want DPIs to be larger than 13. Next is text. Say that 3 times to produce a typography spell. With text, you can add new styles for your presentation to align with your company's marketing or your personal preferences. So here I have our presentation text. I have a couple other text files saved, so you can pick which one you want to use. Back to our overview. I like to use the leader to call out anything quirky with the project. Or if I forgot what chair this was, you can use the leader text and it will input the quantity, the part number, and the description. If you do Control A, you can select all the text and just type in what you want. I think this is very useful for callouts. I don't like the pointy arrowhead. It seems a little aggressive. So I like to do this filled circle. And same thing with the text. You can edit the arrow size. So I'll make this a little bit smaller and do 0.15 inch. And I think that looks nice. Now, if you have a lot of edits, you can hit the quick text editor. And a witchy tip is to go to the next box with the tab key. So say we revised a project scope, we can just click in the first text box, edit the short text, hit tab, and it'll just tab through every single text box, even on your title box, to go through all of them and make your edits as needed. It even captures the text that's outside of the title block. Next is export. So in Paper View, you can export to CAD or PDF here as well, so a couple other places. If you attended Kayla's Springer session, she covered her cool way of exporting to PowerPoint, where she collabed with her marketing team. And lastly, we have revision history, and just note that this extension is required to use it. We include it in our title block, which is handy, but if you don't have it in your title block, you can just pop it in here and it'll automatically put your revision history in the presentation if your company does that. And that's just located in our drawing space toolkit. Are you handing off your presentation to sales or the client? Consider these thoughtful touches to include so the client has a better understanding of how you view and organize their project. So including something like a cover page with a picture of their building could be thoughtful. You could also include an inspiration page or a mood board within CET, and I will show you a couple cool tricks with that. So here is my cover template. Here it is with the image of their building. I just found this on Google. You can edit the brightness to make the text pop. So here it imported something around the middle. So you just turn the brightness up. There's no scale for the number of brightness, but I like to align it with the F in front above and have black text, and I think that looks really good. For the inspo page, you can add spaces in between each letter if you wanted to edit the kerning. And if you want to have multiple words, just make sure you add 3 spaces in between. So a little trick there. You can also include a hello or thank you page. A dimension elevation could also be a thoughtful touch. Most of your main manufacturers will have an elevation feature in their own components tab, but there's also one in the symbols library extension. And this is very helpful for if you have a lot of casework and overheads and just how everything kind of aligns. Also, cannot stress this enough, show part tag colors and add the legend. So over here, we have callouts for the different size workstations. They're all similar typicals with different sizes. We also, if you use quantity tagging and you quantity tag by room number, in your description, you can write what type of room it is. You can also differentiate between 2 types of workstations. So if you have a grad student workstation versus a postdoc workstation, it's just a nice visual guide. So now I'm going to show you examples in a put it all together document. So first, I'm going to show you a PDF that was generated from CET only. So using CET, I created this presentation. It should look familiar. Note on this page, I just drew some circles and highlighted them blue. to call out this lounge piece. I included some callouts, and that's pretty much it, but it was nice just to have a little buffer before just diving straight into your furniture solution. Next, I'm going to show you a PowerPoint that I did using the export to PowerPoint feature within CET. So this is just elevating it a little bit more. I added in a hello page, a table of contents. The info page I could layer since I use PNG files. I use the transparent shapes to highlight the lounge piece. And then I created this GIF of the workstation. It's not playing. Maybe if we go through it. There we go. So if you want to know how I did this, stay after and I will show you. And then the last page has the acknowledgement, the sign off, and just a thank you page. So we used our company's marketing deck to do this, so I wasn't reinventing the wheel, just using what we already had. Next, I'm going to show you this PowerPoint that I saved as JPEG images that I popped into a website called Prezi. So this is nice because as you click through, it just takes you on a little journey of the same exact pages. And this probably took me maybe 10 minutes for about 13 slides, which you just save and pop it in. What's nice is it does support the GIF. And that's it. So you have a Bewitching presentation, now what? In Bluebeam or a similar PDF reader, you can add transparent shapes to call out spaces on the plans. This feature request is currently on the Configura roadmap, so make sure to go vote for this feature. Do you notice a typo or an oopsie daisy? Use the edit text tool to fix these, but make sure you go back to correct those in CET. Then check the file size and decompress as needed. You can go to Document, Reduce File Size to help with maximizing performance. Some PowerPoint spells. You can also add transparent shapes here. Utilize existing templates as a first pass for your client and quickly edit imagery and text through the slide master. Alternatives to PowerPoint include Prezi, Mural, Miro, and Canva. I've seen other dealerships use this as a first pass, and I think this is great. So these can be great solutions for your first meeting with your client instead of populating their plans in CET and having to revise multiple times. Prezi Basic is free. So what I just showed you, anyone can use. They do have an AI feature, and I wouldn't recommend that because it's not great with furniture solutions. Next, for Outlook, if your company uses Outlook, just know that Outlook only supports 25 megabyte files via email. So whether it's one file or multiple files, the email itself cannot exceed 25 megabytes when sending externally. Otherwise, you will receive the dreaded undeliverable curse. Some alternatives are WeTransfer and Dropbox. Check to see if your company has a process for this. Use your brain, not your energy. Sage advice from my mom. Feel free to reach out to me. Here is my contact info. Otherwise, Have a great day.